So now, you remember the tool we got in Hawaii? I told him he's
It's so long. I didn't say hi. I saw you guys at the graduation, and every time I went over to say hi, somebody else was there. I'm like, so good to see you.
هنا رجع اسمه رجع
We are here together. Well, never understood how so many people turn their back on things because of wrongdoing. Why?
شلون شيلها من عيني خاطري اسمه
So you're online, Ilan. You know this. Hello, everybody. I promised to be back at 12, and I have to say I'm late by about 7 minutes. Normally, our time on target is a little bit better than that. But anyway, we kind of have kind of an open mic opportunity, and I will say again that our gentlemen over there who are helping us out we're going worldwide. We actually do have people, I think, that are online and watching this event. So I kind of want to start out with a personal story, and then anybody else who wants to come up to the mic and share it with everybody would be great. But certainly you don't have to. I'm just going to remind you: do not mess with the mic. You can touch it, but don't mess with it. Other than that, okay? Even if you're a really tall guy, I'm sorry, you're just going to have to, bend down a little bit and take the height that it's set. So in 1992, or coming out of Desert Storm, I was an attack helicopter commander guy, and I've been flying Cobras and stuff like that early in my career, and I had thought to myself, there's got to be something better out. I want to try and get something, whatever the next generation that's going to come to Army aviation. I want to make that better. So I applied, and actually, shockingly, based upon my grades from West Point, I was shockingly accepted. So we came at the time to the National Test Pilot School to get pre-TPS, a pre-test pilot school course, because we had all been operational people for 10 to 12 years. And if you look back now, if you have them still, at your notes from like college math and physics and stuff like that, I guarantee you'll look at it and you'll say something like, well, that handwriting's familiar, but I don't have any idea what everything else is, right? So that was the event I had. And we came here, literally to this building. And the first morning, we were greeted by Nadia and Sean, and it was great. And we came in, and you can tell, you just walk in the hangar, you walk around in this, the atmosphere exudes aviation, right? So anybody who loves aviation just loves the atmosphere. So we make our way into the first class, and this is where the fear started. And I normally don't say I was afraid of anything, but I'll have to say, I guess I wasn't afraid, I was concerned. So Sean, with no notes at all, is up at the beginning of the, I don't remember if it's a chalkboard or a whiteboard. I don't really remember that part, but I know he just wrote from memory the 3 equations of motion. And I may say this wrong, but they're simultaneous multi-factor differential equations, right? It's hard even to say it, but to see these things, right, they're this long when they're on the board, 3 of them. And to get any really point on an aircraft's performance or anything's performance, right, you have to solve them all. And there's more unknowns than there are knowns. So if anybody who knows that says you can't solve that equation, right? So that's why we still need flight test engineers and test pilots, which is good. So anyway, he takes those 3 equations and he derives the drag equations, just like, oh yeah, right? And right then I knew I am in big trouble, because I was not there, right, academically. But over the 6 weeks, I know which seems like a short time, but it felt a lot longer back then. Sean and Nadia took us in and said, okay, let's now start a little simpler and work up. And let's fly and just fly and work up. And I didn't think I would get emotional. But if you think back to the starting point of what changed your life, you think, yeah, I got married. decided to go to the Army. Okay. Had first kid. Holy camoli. And then I want to be a test pilot. Right? It happened right here. And it happened with Sean. And it happened with Nadia. That's my story. Okay.
Hello. I was fortunate enough to meet the Roberts just in a short time. And already I can see how they're so impressionable. I don't have wonderful stories that I'm going to be able to learn about Mr. Roberts because I met him after he was already sick, so I just know that gentleman. But I can tell you that in the time that we spent, he always adored his Mrs. Roberts. The love that the two of these people shared was immensely relevant when you walked into a room. The care for each other, no matter where he was at in his own state, he always remembered his Mrs. Roberts. And I want that to be known for him. Also, his children, he spoke of you many times. I may not have known what exactly he was talking about, but do know that he loved you and you were with him. I used to play songs for him, and there was two that I'll always think of him. Sinatra, Fly Away With Me. He'd light up. I don't know, I always imagine them on a date somewhere really awesome and him singing it in her ear. Like, I don't know, there's not very many things that make you actually have an envision of somebody else, but that song will always be the Robert song. And lastly, which is why I came right after the last gentleman, because I think you guys should know that at the end, his dedication and loyalty to everything that he created was still there. He was still a boss. They had some issues with their water system, and there was some construction going on, and he would tell me, "You need to get over there and clean that up." And I would tell him, "Sir, I'm just here to sit with you and enjoy your company." He goes, "Well, it's about time you do something." He was always the boss, and his smile, no matter what, was impeccable. As blue as the sky, his eyes. It was just amazing to see all of these things that I've heard him kind of mumble and talk about, and now I can put it all together. And I just want you guys all to know that this is amazing, and what a legacy. And it's been such a pleasure. The last thing is that Mrs. Roberts got to hear him sing, and I did many times, but he sang Hallelujah, or excuse me, I'm reading it wrong. He would sing the battle hymn of the Republic, which was, I just, for a second, would like to honor him, please. Is that okay? Okay. Oh. Sorry. You want to hear? He'd get so excited when he start to hear it start. I just see his face. Sorry. We all know it's a very long song. He knew every word at every pitch, and he would sit so tall and strong. So also thank you for his service, and for any other servicemen, just know, I guess it really doesn't ever die. Thank you.
So, speaking on behalf of my husband, who regrets very much that he cannot be here today, he knew Sean for a very long time, and I want to make sure, or he wanted to make sure that everybody knew that he wanted to be here and that he had a profound respect for Sean and Nadia and for what they built. And he, as the current president of National Test Pilot School, is very proud to carry on the legacy and to continue the legacy and to make sure the school lives on and prospers. And personally, Sean and Nadia have always been so lovely to both of us. Sean was a true gentleman, and we have a profound respect for both of them. And it was a pleasure to know him.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gareth. The last 8 years I've spent behind the person. I do not spend my time out front any longer, and I'm enjoying it. Nadia, you and Sean have always been just straight up honest with me. And, you know, I've known you since the early 80s. And I thought about it driving down here today, all the flights and different airplanes in my career. Professional aviator for 54 years this year. And so you and Sean were a part of that for the majority of my entire career. And yeah, I am. And it's nice talking to you a month or so ago. I hate to have that to be the occasion that we connected and talked, but it's always good to hear your voice. And, you know, I had the pleasure of running Mojave for 14 years. We had a lot of events occur on my watch. Most people don't know this number, but in my 14 years, we lost 19 humans at Mojave. And don't think those don't cross my mind every day. And we were involved with some of those directly. And it is what it is. And, you know, if I can give any word of advice, and I learned this from Sean and myself and Nadia and others, but problems don't heal themselves. You got to deal with them head on their own merits, and you just deal with it. And I saw them deal with it, the tough days, and at Scaled and at the test pilot school. And that's what I thought about today, and the dignity which you and Sean dealt with the problems. You never stopped teaching me. And I'm proud to be here and proud to stand with you today, Nadia. Thanks.
Larry, you want to talk about the logo? Yeah, sure. Good afternoon, folks. My name is Larry Higgins. This is my buddy, Lynn Hanks. Like Pat, we met Sean and Nadia through the Army's pre-TPS course that Sean and Nadia taught. We were a little before Pat's time. I think that was in the mid-70s, around 77, 78, something like that. In those days, Sean and Nadia taught over at Edwards, where the Army flight test activity used to be. And my college academic career was maybe less stellar than Pat's. I did finish, but I only had a couple tries at it. Nothing to do with math, science, engineering, but I got through it. I figured out the way to get along with Sean was to let him beat me at handball. So every day after class over on the base, Lynn and I and Sean and one of the other guys, Bart, we'd go up to North Base where I guess it was NASA had a handball court. We didn't play racquetball, we played handball. Sometimes there'd be four of us, we'd play 2-on-2. Sometimes that'd be just the three of us. Sean, Lynn, and I, we'd play 1-on-3, or 1-on-2 rather. That's kind of a different game, but that's the way you play it. You all play for yourself, but you're playing against two others when it's your turn to serve. And he'd still beat the both of us. So, but that's the way to get in with your teacher. And so I think he took it a little easier on us. At least he took it easier on me. But he had a big influence on me. I had an Army helicopter career and fixed wing career in those days by that point. And he set me on straight on the road on test pilot. And the rest of my career, flying career, I was a test pilot. And I credit Sean and Nadia, the trips in the Dove and the lectures on the blackboard. And back in those days, I know this is prehistoric compared to the facilities they have here today, but he had a file box full of slides that you threw up on an overhead projector, and they were all covered. They were in an envelope, a plastic envelope protector, so he could make his notes on them and erase them after that. That's what I remember about the pre-TPS course, and we became great friends from then on. So I'm going to pause at this point and let Lynn make some remarks about those days. Then I'm going to talk about some other interactions.
Yeah, we really enjoyed the experience of that pre-course. Got to be pretty good friends of our instructors, and that relationship has continued to this day. that's sort of unusual, I think, where the instructors take in the students and keep them on for lifetime friends. This all kind of winds around after we went through the Navy Test Pilot School, and Larry and I both came back out to Edwards to be just working test pilots. And as time went on, the beginnings of the National Test Pilot School started. And this facility didn't exist, but the dream was there. And Sean's dream, and I'm sure Nadia supported that wholeheartedly throughout the early beginnings, really took this school on the road. And it was just the two of them and guest instructors. So the first major contract I think they had for the National Test Pilot School was in Brazil. And Embraer wanted to create their own cadre of test pilots and flight test engineers. So they contracted with the school to bring the school to them. Sean, he knew how to read the room and read people that he could trust. And one day I got a phone call and he said, look, I'm going down to Brazil and I need some help. And can you do that? And I'm still in the Army, and I still have an Army job. So it turns out I was able to get 30 days of leave, and I went with them on the first flight into Brazil to do that. And on the way down there, we're in Varig, I think was the airline that serviced.
Yeah, Varig. That's a Brazilian airline.
So we're going down to Brazil, and we're sitting close to each other in the airplane. And I said, Sean, how are we going to do this? We're going down there, and we don't fly any of the airplanes they have. And we're going to be the instructors. So how are we going to get this done? And there weren't any good answers, I don't think, on that airplane. But once we got to Brazil, turns out that the chief pilot of Embraer was a guy named Colonel Cabral. He had been a Brazilian Air Force pilot who went to the Air Force Test Pilot School. And this is when Sean was an instructor at the Air Force Test Pilot School. So they got to be good friends. And so when Embraer needed some help, Colonel Cabral, if you've ever been a colonel in the South American Air Force or South American military, you're a colonel for life. So Colonel Cabral maintained that title. And we went to his office the next day, and we discussed those things with him. How are we going to do this? And he said, well, you're going to meet me on the flight line tomorrow morning, and we're going to go fly. So Sean asked him, okay, what are we going to fly? And he said, well, we've got this twin engine turboprop, fully instrumented because we just got through certifying this aircraft, and we're going to loan it to you. And I'm going to go fly with you tomorrow, and we'll see what happens from there.
That was the Xingu, right?
Xingu,
Yep.
Yes.
Like a Beach King Air.
Mm-hmm. And so we said, it'd be kind of neat if we had a handbook, an operator's manual to study so we know what this airplane's all about. So he said, well, I'm going to send a runner over to your office this afternoon, and they'll bring you an operator's manual. And they did. This runner brought a package, which was the operator's manual for the Xingu. But guess what? It was in Portuguese. So we opened the book up, and sure enough, it's organized very similar to all other operators' manuals. And there's a chapter that had lots of numbers and charts and graphs, and you could tell that, those are airspeeds and those are altitudes and those are temperatures. And it turns out that aviation is pretty much a universal language, but that's what we had to study. We did eventually get an English version of the manual. So we met Colonel Cabral the next morning on the flight line. And the evening before, Sean said, you've flown twin engine aircraft with Pratt & Whitney engines on them. So why don't you go first tomorrow? So he said, maybe you can start it. And so sure enough, I flew first. I bet we didn't fly 45 minutes with me in the left seat. And then we landed, Sean swapped with me and did the same similar thing. And we got back, parked the airplane, walking away from the aircraft. We said, when are we going to fly our next flight? He said, no, you're done. You are qualified and it's your airplane. So Sean and I went out and flew a couple of times together just so we didn't embarrass ourselves with the students. But I think some more to follow with.
That was the spring, I think, of '83. I was still in the Army then. By that time, I had rotated to Pax River. I was the OPSO at the Navy Test Pilot School, instructor there. So I followed Lynn. It was a 2-month course, 8 weeks. That first year, '83, Lynn went down first. I went down second. We really didn't pass. We kind of passed in the air, I think. Sean and Nadia drove Lynn down from San Jose dos Campos into Sao Paulo. Got Lynn on an airplane, probably hung out, had a couple of drinks, picked me up on an inbound airplane, and we went back to San Jose dos Campos. So we got back to the hotel we're staying in. My introduction was a little less formal than Lynn's. Sean threw me a book on a T-28 Tucano, which is a lead-in prop fighter airplane, ejection seats, but it's laid out like every fighter. And Sean threw me at this. He says, tomorrow morning, your flight's going to be long stab. You got this guy for a student. I think they had, at first class, we had 4 pilots, 2 engineers. And you're going to do a long stab flight with him. I said, you got a flight card? He said, oh, hell no. You know what long stab is. Go out and do an hour introductory flight to longitudinal stability. And here's the flight manual. Again, of course, it was in Portuguese. But it's all laid out the same, you know. Every fighter aircraft is the same. Radios are over there. Fuel pumps are over there. Flaps over there. Gears over there. What else do you need to know? Plus, you tell the student, you start it. You know, so it worked out. We had a lot of fun doing that. We flew the Xingu, which is a twin turbo prop, kind of like a King Air. We flew that T-28, I think they called it, right? Or T-8, what is it?
I don't remember.
Anyway, a
We
Tucano.
called it as,
Yeah, it was Tucano was the name. We flew a couple of other airplanes. We flew some, I think a Piper and a Cessna or something like that. All lighter fixed wing aircraft.
Banderati. I think we flew that thing too.
Yeah. But the one story I wanted to tell was kind of a lead into the National Test Pilot School. It was that first year. I was there with Sean Noddy, and I think his name was Robert, right? The instrumentation tech. Do you remember? John, yeah, John, not Rob, John Riley. Instrumentation tech that they had down there with them. So we're out to dinner one night, and Sean says, we got to get this National Test Pilot School thing off the ground. First thing we need is a logo. So, not being very artistic or very creative, I took a napkin, got a couple of colored pens, I sketched out a logo, kind of a nominal airplane, put something on it that looks like wings on an airplane, and an X kind of, taken a little bit from SCTP, threw some colors on it, and it's the same logo that they use today. So I'll take a little bit of credit for having developed that logo. Now, mind you, there was alcohol involved or otherwise I couldn't have drawn shit. Excuse my language. It would have looked like that too if I hadn't have been drinking. That is not to say I drank every day, but boy, you're getting paid in whatever the currency is there. I've forgotten right now.
Cruceros.
Yeah,
Cruceros.
Cruceros. Anyway, I was a millionaire, whatever that was. So
Nadia would come back from the finance office every week or every other week
whatever.
with a grocery sack full of paper money. And it took a lot of paper money to buy things.
How long were you there?
A month. I was there a
month
month and he
each.
was there a month.
Yeah, that was the first year. We did this again in '84, the following year. Again, Sean and Nadia had a contract. A similar course we had, I think that year the mix was a little different. I think we had 3 pilots and 3 engineers, or 2 pilots and 4 engineers. So it was a small group, but there was a small group of cadre there too, instructors. That second year in '84, I went first rather. I did the first month. So I got to do the performance, because, you know, you start with performance, you finish with stability and control, flying qualities. So we kind of swapped things around. I went first, Lynn went second in '84. Really good experience. That was sort of the early days, so to speak, of the National Test Pilot School. And the other stories, I'm not going to tell in front of a microphone. Those are private conversation stories. You know, what goes on TDY stays on TDY. You don't bring that stuff home.
Yeah, we've got tons and tons of stories, and some are appropriate, some not so much. But what I mostly want to say here today is that thanks so much to Sean in particular, and Nadia also, for the opportunity. I mean, the opportunities they gave us, the trust that they had in us to let us go do things like that were just unbelievable. I tell people these stories and they look at me like I've got 2 heads, that can't happen, you know, but it did. And I'm very appreciative of that opportunity.
I'll say one more remark. As time went on, I got out of the Army. I was working for a defense contractor still at Pax River. And the National Test Pilot School had expanded and grown. This facility had been developed. They had taken this over. They were teaching courses here. And once or twice, they got a little short on helicopter instructors, because they were doing helicopter courses as well as the fixed wing courses. So Sean would call me up, and I came out here a couple of times. I think about 2 or 3 weeks each time. Did a little fill-in for them. They had some guys on staff, but they were a little short-handed. And the neat thing about it, and to tack on to what Lynn said about trust, yeah, I had some duties out here. I flew some hops. They had an old recip 34 recip. I can't remember which one it was. An old Sikorsky with a big recip up front. I got one trip around the pattern with John Hagan. He says, okay, you go fly it now. The next day with students. But other than that, Sean would say, and this hangar was full of different various aircraft. He'd tell me, he said, Larry, when you're done flying, if you can get one of the guys to open the hangar and push out an airplane, take any one you want and go fly. And he meant that. Just push an airplane out there, qualified in it, never flown it, get it out there. If you can't start it, get one of the guys, the mechs, to start it for you and go fly for an hour. He really had that much trust in it. In us, myself and Lynn. Lynn had the same experiences. Push it out of the barn and go fly it. That's a lot of trust for a guy to have in somebody. So my applause to Sean and Nadia.
Thanks, Gareth. My name's Scott Evans. I am not an aviator. I met Sean and Nadia back in 1983. Have worked with them professionally for 40 years and become very, very close friends with both of them through the years. Probably my funniest recollection is not really dealing with me, but dealing with my son. So my son was in college and he called me up one day looking for a summer job. And he goes, "Do you think Sean will let me come work at the National Test Pilot School for the summer?" And I go, I don't know. Let me call Nadia. So I call Nadia. Nadia goes, "What the hell is he going to do?" And I go, "I don't know, but he's looking for a job." So lo and behold, they hired him. He comes back and I don't know what the pay rate at the time was, but he goes, "What are they paying you?" And goes, "Like $6 an hour." And I go, "What?" And he goes, "Well, I negotiated flight lessons too." So then a few months later, I get a phone call from Nadia, and Nadia goes, "Can you be at Mojave Friday morning at 7 a.m.? My son Kenny's going to do his first solo flight." And sure enough, he came out and saw my son do his first solo flight. About 2 weeks later, my son calls me and says, "You need to come out to Mojave, next week at this time." Why? Because Nadia is going to take me for an Impala ride, and she knows that if I'm going, you're not going to allow me to unless you get to go. So the biggest thrill of my life was going for an Impala ride with Sean. And true aviators, they love aviation. Both of my sons are now pilots because of Sean and Nadia. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Afternoon now. My name is Jonathan Knoll. I'm one of the newest test pilot instructors here. And Nadia, I haven't met you, and I didn't have the pleasure of meeting Sean, but I'm here because of Sean and yourself, and I'm very thankful for that. I wanted to speak to that. I'm Canadian, and I just got here about a month ago. Thank you. Yeah. I don't know why, us Canadians always like to tell you folks in America that we're Canadian. I'm not sure why. But this is about the fact of how thankful I am to be here and what an opportunity it is. I was selected to be a test pilot in Canada in 2000, and that's when I started to learn about the different test pilot schools. Making a test pilot school is a very, very hard thing to do. And the fact that this school was founded by the two of you, the fact that it's still in existence is huge. I went to the French test pilot school, but a number of my colleagues in Canada were formed here at National Test Pilot School. Colleagues who I hold in very high regard, colleagues who tell me about what their experience was here and how personal it was from the two of you. And that rang true. And the Aerospace Engineering Test Establishment in Canada continues to send Canadians here to this school regularly. We have one student right now. We just graduated a student. And that's a true honor for me. So I just wanted to speak to you about what a privilege it is to be here and how I wouldn't be here. And this is a momentous time in my life. Just very quickly, I worked here briefly in 2020. I had to go home for family reasons, and then I was asked to come back. And how thankful I am to be here. It's just, I keep saying it again, what a wonderful opportunity to be a test pilot, to be a test pilot instructor, to work with students, and to work in this great facility, and how thankful I am to you both. Thank you very much.
My name is George Merritt, And I met Sean probably in about 1981, 1982. At the time, I was a test pilot for Hughes Aircraft Company, and we had a program at Eglin Air Force Base. And so being a transit aircraft, there was no hangar. I was parked out in base ops. And lo and behold, I met Sean. And he had this Dove that he was using to train recent graduates, second lieutenants that were in the Air Force, that were flight test engineers, never been up in an airplane, never wrote a test report or anything. So he would take them up and they would write that. So kept in touch with him through SETP. And probably about 1983, he asked me if I would be on the board of directors. I'm trying to think of who else was on. Wendy Schaller was on at that time period. Pat Henry was on. Mostly test pilots that were with SETP. And so it was kind of a one-man show. And I'm still on the board. Matter of fact, this is my 40th year on the board. So I have seen this grow from one man to what you see here, a tremendous outfit that has gone way beyond any expectations I had. I thought, man, this is just as hard as you could do compared with the military test pilot schools where they provide the housing. The guys are all math trained. They take care of everything. All you have to do is teach them. He had to do everything with foreign students, make sure that they understood math, they could understand English. I just thought, wow, nothing could be harder than that. So I've seen this grow, and what a legacy it is for him. I'm sure he was very proud of what he had started and how it had become. One of the humorous events we had was probably 25 years ago. He asked me if I would be the guest speaker at one of the graduations. And so I came up and told him, I have an idea that Santa Claus was your first student that went through. So I'm going to talk about, funny, silly things about how you would carry that much tonnage, go through all the time zones, go supersonic. And I ran it by him and we talked about it. And he came up with an interesting idea. He thought that he would be the one that would give Santa Claus his final check ride. So he said, well, how are we going to do that? So we came up with the idea that Sean would carry a rifle on board the sleigh when he saw Santa Claus. And of course, Santa would ask, why the rifle? And said, I think you're going to lose an engine on takeoff. So we thought that was pretty good. So we had put it together, the two of us, that there was some meat to it, but also a lot of humor. So there was a funny side of him too. Thank you.
Pleased to be here. My name is Terry Donovan. I was a part-time instructor under Sean for over 20 years. And I'd come to the, do I need to get closer? Is this better? I didn't want to touch it because I was told not to touch it. I had first met Sean and Nadia in, I think, 81. I had been discharged at Shepherd Air Base as an enlisted airman, and I went to university there at the local college. And long story short, went to graduate school out here at UCLA. And while I was working on my dissertation, I taught at my old alma mater there in Wichita Falls, Texas, near Shepherd Air Base. And I got a call from Sean, and he said, I'd like to have you come out and teach for us part-time. And I agreed to do that. Well, he had an ulterior motive. He thought since I had this time teaching while I was a graduate student, that I could help get accreditation for the master's program at NTPS. I didn't know didn't have a foggy idea of what it was like to get accreditation. But he explained to me that they had had some difficulty in the past when they approached ABET, the American Board for Engineering Training, about getting accredited. That as far as they were concerned, when they looked at the school as a whole in the curriculum, they said, you're just a trade school. Of course, we all know nothing could be farther from the truth. And it was my job to make sure that they understood that. I couldn't have done it without Sean's encouragement and the encouragement of Wendy Schaller, who many of you know. Wendy at that time was the deputy director to Sean. I called ABET. They went through the business about, well, you're just a trade school. There's no way we're going to accredit your degree. I called the State Board of Education, and I got a wonderful woman there to talk to. And she said, what you need to do is separate the academic program as it's offered from all the other good stuff that you do. So Flight Test Institute, an academic arm of National Test Pilot School. I went to Wendy with that, and he said, yeah, we'll call it the National Flight Test Institute. I noticed on sign now it's changed. It's the International Flight Test Institute, but it started out as the National Flight Test Institute. We put all the academic programs on paper in there. Immediately went through with Sean's encouragement, pat on the back, and his total support. And within a year after they came and visited, looked at the curriculum and everything, we got the program approved. We had a Master of Science, an accredited Master of Science in Flight Test Engineering. Now, there was one gimmick they threw at us. Well, there are two gimmicks the board threw at Sean. And as clever as he was, he knew he could accept those because they were important to those folks, but not important to us. One was, they didn't consider it a degree in aero because they did when you do flight testing, you do so many things other than aerodynamics. They didn't consider it a degree in mechanical because you do so many things that are other than mechanical, on and on and on. So they said, in order to be accredited, you have to have, your degree has to be a degree in Master of Science in Flight Test and whatever. So no problem. Flight Test Engineering. That was fine, but only undergraduates from ABET-approved schools could be considered for a Master of Flight Test and Engineering. So we created a second degree, the Master of Flight Test and Evaluation, for people who might have a degree in physics, but ABET wouldn't accredit them because they didn't have an undergraduate degree in engineering. And all of that was clever stuff that you could sit down and have a beer and talk with Sean about, and he would immediately come and hit the point. Do this, do this, do this, and we're in. And I was amazed because to this day, I couldn't have done it by myself. Believe me, it was all Sean. Thank you.
My name is Tom Morgenfeld. I've been around here 10, 15 years or so. I knew Sean on two different levels. One, very personal, for which I hold his friendship very dear. We're both airplane geeks, airplane nuts, and lovers of Austin Healey Bug-Eye Sprites. So we were able to communicate on several different levels. The other thing that I really appreciate is when I retired from Lockheed in 2004 or so, hanging around the house, I was going to get kicked out any minute. I think all you have been retired know exactly how it is. Twice the husband, half the pay. And Sean picked me up off the heap, asked me if I'd come over here and help, like Terry, do part-time work. I learned amazing. I thought I knew a little bit about, I knew nothing compared to Sean. So being a good friend, it was one thing. The second thing, for which I have total admiration of both Sean and Nadia, is this whole institution. It started out with a couple of, I hate to say this because I'm a nice Navy boy, a couple of Army guys, okay? It can only go up from there. Sorry. No. There you go. No, to see what they've created here, and what I unabashedly defend to anybody, that this is the best test pilot school in the world. And it started with Sean and Nadia,
a dream, and incredible vision and energy. Hats off to them all.
Hi, I'm Brian Sandberg. I'm the current president of the Society of Experimental Test Pilots. And I didn't know Sean very well, and I don't know Nadia very well either, but I can say I probably met them for the first time before I was even a pilot in 1999 when my father took me to a SCTP symposium and banquet at the Beverly Hilton. And I can guess that that's probably true because I definitely remember seeing Sean and Nadia once I was a test pilot and I started participating in SCTP. They were always there. Sean was always presenting. Nadia was always talking to me about future opportunities. Maybe I could come work at the school type of thing. And that was always in my mind. When I had the opportunity to be an instructor at the Naval Test Pilot School, I thought, good, this will get me into working at the National Test Pilot School. And I remember all of the support that they gave to the society. And that's what I want to make sure that is known, that even to this day, National Test Pilot School is one of the greatest supporters of the Society of Experimental Test Pilots. There might be a business case, but I think it's a love case. I think that they really believe in the organization, and we appreciate that they do that for us. Thank you.
Like one lady said to me, it's a bitch and it sucks, but I'm going to get through this. It started out when I met Sean with 3 airplanes, a Cessna 150, a V-tail Bonanza, and a Dove. And for you people who think a dove is a bird, you're right, but it's also a British airplane. And I know there's some mechanics in here. For you people that have never worked on a British airplane, it's like a British car. You know, the engines are upside down, it's got oil on the ground. Everybody says it can't fly because the oil is on the ground. That's where it belongs because the engines are upside down. That's the Brits. They also drive on the proper side of the road, they think. Yeah. This is my family. This is Gareth. I call him my bonus son. This is Siobhan, my bonus daughter, and her 2 kids, my grandkids, Ashlyn and McLean. I got an email from Pat Morris. And Pat Morris says, he's another Army guy, okay. So he says, I first met Sean in November 1977 at Edwards Air Force Base while attending his pre-TPS course for the US Army. Sean was a force to be reckoned with, the smartest man in the room with a personality the size of an elephant and a wit to keep you smiling. He was a man impossible not to like. He made a difference. He will be missed. I wrote back, thank you so much for the kind words and thoughts. I met Sean in August 1977 when I took his 2-week short course in Cold Lake. You're right, he had a personality the size of an elephant, and I ended up marrying that wonderful elephant. And he is sorely missed. When this started with 3 airplanes, we had no idea, none, where it was going to end. And it was the show on the road, and I have stories about that too. But it was on the road all the time, to the point where Sean would be teaching in Thailand on Christmas Day, and I would be teaching in Taiwan on Christmas Day. And we would meet in Mauritius and then go from Mauritius back to either Taiwan or Italy or you name it. In 1987, Sean decided to stop the world. We got to come to Mojave. And that's when the building we built in 86, and we started bringing the students in 86 here in Mojave. When we started, we had a hangar that was a World War II hangar down the road, and with 3 airplanes. Now, between flight research and the school, I think you're up to 8 on. And I would like to thank Pat Garman and everybody at Flight Research and National Test Pilot School for supporting this here today. Okay, so a long time ago, Siobhan sent a mug. And the mug said, "Flying is the second best thrill known to man. Landing is the first." So here's to Sean's flight, and hopefully an excellent landing at the other end. Thank you all for coming and sharing. I appreciate it. Okay.
I just wanted to say this. These glasses are a favor to always remember this day of toast to Sean. So please take them with you. Okay. And I'm Ann Clinton Roberts, married to Gareth, but I was just going to say I knew Big Sean, Mr. Roberts, as he was known to me for all those years. And he taught me to waltz in the 5th grade, and I've never forgotten it. And we've shared a lot of memories together, but I grew up with this family and we all grew up together. And so it's been my pleasure to watch all of this grow as well. So thanks.
I don't know how to even, you know, it wasn't really. So we started as seriously, like,
What was you, what's your request?
somebody like you goes out something and then goes just it's like there are a lot of people that have been going to the just but with you I see things that it's like no, yeah, no, I don't know. Maybe in Hebrew I can explain it better.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Excuse me, I'm gonna go say hi.
Something that. It's like I think we'll make it a great team. It's like it's like application built. It started with this thing. They started as like you cross the line, right there. They're like, no, because now it's this one.
So you started this?
Yeah, yeah, but not. There's many videos on YouTube. I really like the one that you crashed.
That's the one we like the most.
No, it's amazing how you survived it. It's like,
What do you mean, like flew, didn't crash? Did you get injured? I mean, no, like, and stuff. Whoa. That's extreme. So what went wrong? Wow. How many people? Just one? Rush? Okay.
it's no because It's like how should it just oh, you don't know what to expect. You've been there.
And you know you can survive it. So.
I'll tell you what I thought.
Arrogant. Just because it has videos. A celebrity.
It's like you say, oh, don't you surprised me.
All right.
All right.
Go home.
Oh, okay. Okay, and the dogs.
And the dogs. Yeah, so we know we have 2, not 4. Because my one son is
Oh, he's back?
well, the older son.
Nice job. All right. Yeah, I enjoyed your talk. I didn't see that you got it. I noticed the pause, but I said maybe the mic is not working because you touched it or something.
Whatever, coming back again.
All right.
Safe travel back.
Another week for my youngest grandson and me. We got these.
You should move to Mojave. Enjoy the weather like us all.
You should come and visit.
Oh, all right, I'm coming with.
I invite you.
All right, safe flight. Yeah, so that's what I wanted. It was a pleasant surprise. It was a short piece. It was like scratching. Yeah.
You feel like you learned?
So that takes like how many 4 years? You start realizing now I see what. And I'm comfortable because what if they're going to ask me those questions and I don't want to be able to? I don't know. So, question great. So, if it's hard, then go. It's a win-win situation. You got the answer, and I am. Oh, yeah.
30 years.
No, it's not that way. It just looks so you rebuild yourself.
Okay. Oh. Two boys. You got to go again.
Like what?
25
No, actually, so don't was in the gym. She was in the so every time I come home, then I say something that you in your eyes, you're very twisting.
That's what the has to do. Now, no, I used to be a teacher in Israel. English
Yeah, but it's hard to sell
here, yeah, I can teach here. But then I was lucky tired. Needed a lot of direction. Like really. Yeah.
It's gonna be, everybody would stay in line. Hey, come on I don't know, maybe some, yeah, maybe something. So you I'm just I think it's this. Yeah. No, I live in People